Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot tell you just how excited I am for this video, because this is going to be the birth of the brand new PC-centric personal rig for hopefully 2024 and beyond. And we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago when I took my existing PC at commission. Very sad day, I know. You may have remembered as well, actually, that we did do like a personal build a couple of years ago where it was hardline. And that's what we're going to do here today, because I want to do something completely new with new components that's not only up to date, but also the problems I had with that rig where the water cooling didn't work properly. I think that was more down to the choice of motherboard with the exact combination of blocks. I know it was annoying, I know it was complicated, but we're doing everything different this time. So this is going to be a bit of a challenge, but I think it's going to be really interesting for you guys to actually see how I go about doing my own personal rig, and then also whether we can finally get that perfect custom hardline liquid cooled system up and running, and then this will be on my desk, as I say, for years to come, because I want this to be fully upgradable. I want it to be ready for like the next gen CPUs, GPUs, and I want this to be like the centerpiece of the channel, and to show you guys that I can actually build gaming PCs seriously
and properly.
Throughout this video, as you've come to expect, we're going to go through absolutely everything in great detail to show you why I love all of the components in here, and I guess if there are some flaws, show you exactly what they are. Hopefully show you how easy it is to put everything together. We're not going to be doing the water cooling in this video. That will be a completely separate one, because obviously that's pretty time consuming. But hopefully we'll get everything else working and showing you exactly what my rig is going to look like. I cannot wait. It's going to be so exciting. So join me for the birth of the PC-centric personal rig 2024 right after a short word from this video's sponsor. MSI's Project Zero is here, and your next PC build will never be the same. Project Zero motherboards take all the usual MSI motherboard smarts and reverse the connectors to the back of the motherboard, allowing you to reduce your cable clutter and have a truly stunning PC build. Project Zero comes in both AMD and Intel platforms, and is compatible with a wide range of Project Zero cases from MSI and third parties. Learn more today with the link down below. So then, as you probably expect, this very much is a rig of all of my favorite components really that we've looked at over the last couple of years. And we're going to start with a case, this one being my favorite case on sale today. This is from Phanteks. This is the NV5, and this is surprisingly inexpensive for a case that is actually as high quality as this. I love the fact that it's the right size. It's a very big enclosure, but it's not one of these massive ones, because even with custom like liquid cooling and stuff, I don't really see the point in having one of these huge cases personally, because it takes up so much space on your desk. And if you've seen my desk before, you know I've got huge whacking speakers, so as much as I like those big dual chamber designs, it's not really going to work for me. This comes in a series of colors. You can either get it in white or black, and as you probably expect, we're going for an all white build, not only for this, but once we get the water cooling in here, I want everything to sort of be as white as possible, because I don't actually think I've done that for a personal rig before. Bear in mind this comes in for around about £85. I think this is an absolute steal, but the catch being you don't get any fans as standard with this, so you're going to have to add your own, but we'll show you exactly which fans I'm going to put in this a little bit later. But in terms of support for water cooling and stuff, I think I can put a nice huge pump res here, which will look quite nice. Fans, radiators at the top and at the side, and then obviously we can fit a fan at the back as well. So loads of ventilation on this, but you've still got that tempered glass on the front as well, so you can properly see into it, which, especially for a showpiece build where you're going to be having custom hardline, it makes sense that you can actually see it. Let's not be selfish and actually show you around this side as well, so you can see loads of mesh there. You can put a 360 there with relative ease and you still get good airflow. And then all of the cables here are actually white as well, which is a nice little touch. You have this door here, so if you want to put SSDs, or in my case probably like fan controllers, RGB hubs and stuff, then you can quite easily put everything there and keep it out of the way. So I really like this case, and I think if you're after more of a traditional look and design and you're willing to spend, including the fans, probably about 130, 40 pounds, dollars, something like that, it's a brilliant case that I highly recommend. Now, as far as the motherboard is concerned, I must admit that the perfect motherboard for me, I'm not entirely sure exists. The one I'm going for, the one I was going for, is this one from NZXT. It's the N7, but it's the AMD B650E version. I know you guys did say that maybe I should go for Intel. We obviously had the other N7 as well, but I think this is going to be the right combination of performance, upgradability, and then looks and design as well, because I just don't think I need the extra features that you'll get from X670E. But let's pretend that this is the first take of the session and then pull our N7 motherboard out of its housing. I mean, where's the anti-static bag gone from? Unbelievable. But yes, obviously you can tell it is a very, very attractive motherboard, and the whole NZXT thing is all about cleanliness, if you like. Now, I'm hoping hoping that that's not going to affect performance. The motherboard BIOS is very similar to what you get from an ASRock board. Because this is an NZXT motherboard, we can actually control all the fan speed through the NZXT CAM software, which actually I think is going to be quite useful for me, as we're not using any Corsair products in this. So we're not going to have a mix of IQ and CAM. We're just going to be using CAM for this. This top slot is also supported for PCI Gen 5 graphics cards, which aren't out now, but potentially like the 5090 could be Gen 5, or if not, the 6090. So it means I can just sort of, granted I have to take the water cooling out, but I can take that out, swap this in, and then obviously that will be absolutely fine. Won't have to swap out the motherboard. But now that I have revealed that I'm going to be Team AMD for my personal rig, I can also reveal that we're going for an unexpected CPU. It's not the 7950X3D, this is just the normal 7950X. And the reason for this, I'd like to think you guys have probably worked it out, is because I don't know yet, genuinely, but I would have a suspicion that there are going to be some brand new CPUs unveiled at Computex that will probably come out, what, like end of June, maybe July? So the last thing I want to do, right, is spend a load of my own money on a chip that's going to be replaced in literally potentially a week and a half. So I'm going to use this for now, and we'll see what happens. I can either get the 7950X 3D cheaper later, or I can wait and potentially get the, what would it be, the 950X 3D, if that comes out. That's the chip I would put in this, but I don't want to sort of spend money on something that's soon to be obsolete. Obsolete for a 16-core processor. Maybe that's not the right word. There's something better out there, okay? That's what we're expecting in the not too distant future. So we're going to go with this for now. It does obviously mean that I am going to have to do some upgrades to my water cooling, which is going to be annoying, but there probably are some ways around that to make it a bit easier to upgrade. But first things first, let's get this CPU in the socket. And then, oh no, I realise I've lied to you. We do have a Corsair product actually in this. We have some RAM, and I'm very happy about this because I think this is the best looking RAM you can get right now. This was the first edition of the Dominator Titanium that they sent out a while ago, but if you want some white memory, I think this is the best looking stuff. It's not cheap. I mean, this is a 7200 megahertz kit, which I'm not even sure is going to work perfectly with this motherboard. We'll see what we can do with the latest BIOS, but I can obviously slow it down and run it at slightly lower timings. I know what you're thinking though. Well, hang on a second. He said he didn't want IQ. He's going to use CAM. What I can do is install IQ, save some white hardware lighting to this, and then remove the app entirely if I want. Obviously, we won't have access to all of the different LED effects, but as this is going to be like an all-white build, that actually wouldn't matter. So we could get around it that way, but this actually has interchangeable tops as well. I don't know if these are going to look better or worse. Let's take the screws out and find out. There's a little socket actually for the RGB. That's quite clever. Oh, I see. There is no RGB if you want to go down this route. Well, it saves me an IQ. Yes, there we are. Okay, so these are the differences. I'll put them under the overhead actually. You can see one is more Corsair RGB. The other one is like extra heatsink actually. That looks like copper to me. You don't have the RGB, but I'd say actually that's probably going to match what we're doing a little bit more and make it just that little bit more unique. Memory module's complete then. Let's get these slotted in, number 2 and 4. Yeah, that looks good actually, doesn't it? A little bit of copper. I mean, I know it's slightly out of place, so maybe that would go better, but maybe there's a way of incorporating a bit of copper into the rest of the build as well, actually. Now, the storage front is always an interesting one because, as I say to you guys all the time, I'd always highly advise that you get a really fast drive on sale because it varies so much. So the ones we're using here are from Samsung. We've got a 990 Pro in 4 terabytes and then a 2 terabyte 990 Evo. It's not quite as fast, but this one actually supports PCI Gen 5 2X, which is confusing, but this one supports PCI Gen 4 4X, but not Gen 5. So this is kind of a little bit more flexible into the future, but I'm not really sure we're in that future yet, which is definitely a little bit confusing, but obviously I have different needs and things, right? So games and stuff will be absolutely fine on this, but where preferable, I'll probably like have 3 terabytes of this dedicated to video partition. 1 terabyte can be everything else, including my favorite games and stuff. But this will be the game drive, and then this will be the work drive for all my 6K raw files that we're going to use here today. And then despite the fact that this top slot is the only PCI Gen 5 slot we actually have on this motherboard for storage, I want to use the slot that has the largest heatsink on the drive that's going to get the warmest, because again, the performance shouldn't actually make any real difference, bearing in mind that this is the faster drive anyway using PCI Gen 4. So I'm going to pop this in, secure it down, peel off our heatsink. That's a new one. and then drop this on top of our drive. And then at this point, we shall reveal one of the weaknesses, if you like, of going for this particular B650E motherboard, or any B650 motherboard to be fair, which is, as I say, you have less bandwidth on the chipset. So this slot number here, which I think is number 2, this is absolutely fine, PCI Gen 4 times 4, but this one at the bottom is PCI Gen 4 times 2. So this one is going to have half the performance potentially. So what? A drive that's PCI Gen 4 up to around about 4,000 megabytes a second or something will be supported here. But if we were to put this 990 Evo here, we would actually be losing performance. So expandability is great, but this is more for, I was going to say PCI Gen 3 drives. It's not, because then surely that would be PCI Gen 3 times 2 as well. So this is a bit limited, this bottom slot. That's why I've gone for high capacity drives in the first place. I'm also not really too sure about cooling here, because these are not heat sinks, they're literally just covers. So I wouldn't want to put drives here that are going to get really hot. So actually, if I was using multiple really fast Gen 4 drives, which I guess we are here today, I'll have to check the temperatures, because, yeah, there is a limitation. It's not going to affect me here, but it's definitely something to note if you are someone that wants loads of storage. I was going to say storage, then I realised that wasn't appropriate. Right, with that all made up, I think we can now proceed to actually put this in our chassis. Ow. The PC shouldn't be hurting me this early on in the build, surely. At least wait for the power supply connections. I hope you can agree with me why we're going with this motherboard, because despite a couple of issues, I've also realised as well that this won't have a temperature probe sensor header on the motherboard, which means when we're actually setting up our fluid temps, it's going to require like a third-party device to have it all running on that, which is going to keep it quiet, which is obviously quite important to me. Should we do fans next? Let's do fans, because I did say to you guys that I was a little bit undecided about what to go for, and in the end, we've gone for Lian Li. We've gone for the ALV2, which might surprise some people because they've obviously got fancier fans like their SL Infinites or even the new ones with the LCDs. But I want this to be simple. I want it to be white with a little bit of white lighting. That's it. I don't really want RGB lighting here. No, the screws are black. I wanted silver. But let's get these fans installed. Fast forward a few minutes and actually quite a lot has happened. I mean, not really. Basically, I've installed one screw, or one fan I should say, with 6 screws because I thought I'd be clever and use Corsair's fancy new quick screws. But what it seems to have done is to actually destroy the thread on 2 of these screw holes in the fan. So don't use the Corsair screws cross-brand, because clearly they don't want that. But if you haven't seen these ALV2 fans before, the whole point is that they literally just line up and then click into position, and then you don't need to worry about having as many screws. And obviously you don't need 2 fan cables per fan, you just have 2, or actually 1 fan cable per block. Way neater. Oh, this has to be the worst thing though, isn't it, about installing fans? It's just the endless amount of screws. In terms of airflow as well, I probably should say we're using this as an intake, and then the top is going to be an exhaust. So it doesn't actually make as much difference really if you're doing a custom liquid cooled loop, because obviously it's all going to be connected. But you do still need to make sure you have decent airflow going to the motherboard, especially with those SSDs. As long as you've got a way that all of that airflow is going to be taken out or brought in, you should be absolutely fine. Well, let's start plugging in all of our I/O now, shall we? And I'm hoping that everything has a cable management grommet in exactly the right place. This USB 3 certainly does. HD audio, I mean, I'm just not going to use that, so I don't think I was going to say I won't bother plugging that in. It's still quite white though, so it should be all right. I mean, it's the bottom left-hand corner, look, but you can still see all of that horrible, ugly color, so I don't want that in there. We're going to remove that. I'm not going to use it anyway. But otherwise, everything else looks good, including our power switch at the bottom left, bottom right. Sorry, one day I'll learn. Then we have our USB Type-C, and then because I want to be organized, we'll also be using some more Corsair. When I said at the start of this, no Corsair, I genuinely in my head thought that was true, but clearly my memory is like a goldfish. We're using some Pro PSU cables for a Type 5 power supply, but I'm already thinking I might swap these out to some cable mod ones, because I did a build a while ago, Editor Carl couldn't find it, it was all white, and we had these lovely cable mod blue and white cables, and this looked phenomenal, and I would love to have that in my own personal rig, so I'll look at that a little bit later, but for now, all white cables. And in terms of the actual power supply that we're using, we're going for something a little bit different, because if it doesn't work, I'd rather know now, and I can change it out for something else. But this is Corsair's shift power supply, which essentially takes the usual connections and puts them on a different part of the PSU. Let me show you. You might be surprised if you didn't know this and you've used a power supply before, because you'll take this out of the box with the slightly more eco packaging, and then it's like, is it Viserys? from Game of Thrones. You know what I'm talking about. Because all of the connections are actually on the side here, which I think is going to make my life a little bit easier, because it just means you have more access to them once you've built your rig up. So if you're someone that does like to change things up regularly, like move different components and things, then it means you can access your power supply that little bit easier, which obviously I am. And I'll tell you what, that has worked really well. When have we ever done a rig with custom cables where it's this clean? This is actually cleaner than a normal PC, like normal PC cables. I like that. I haven't used the shift really in a case before that's really been ideal for it, but this is definitely an exception to that rule, because once we've got everything a little bit tidier, look, there's barely any cable bulk in that at all. But that's enough cabling, for now at least. I think it's time to press on to my least favourite bit, especially as we're not even going to be using this in the final rig, the radiator. And I hate radiators, as you know, but actually, when it comes to custom hardline or custom cooling in general, radiators are fine. You screw them in, that's it. It's all of the tubing and stuff that's actually a little bit more difficult. But we're not going with that today, as I say. So instead, we've gone for a white cooler. This is the Kraken Elite 360 RGB. I thought obviously it would match the rest of the build the best. We're not using the default fans, which are almost certainly fine, but obviously we want everything to match, and I want this to be like as apples to apples as possible. When we do our like before and after thermal testing, we can really see the difference in terms of thermals and acoustics. But to be fair, I may hate them, but at least it is easier when you can use blocks of fans just like this. Plenty of room actually as well. If I did want to double stack those fans, we might have room. The RAM, as I say, is quite tall, but I think that's probably doable for push-pull. But to be fair, a 7950X probably doesn't need it. To get the pump head on, we need to remove the default AM5 mounting hardware. I think this one's going to be easier to do laying down flat actually. So we grab our little spacers, I suppose they are, and they go on top of these little screw holes with the AM5 sort of notched top facing upwards. Then rather unusually, we grab our double-ended screw, and this actually goes through this and then into the motherboard. Surely there was a better way of doing that, but hey ho. Then you can grab the AMD mounting plate and then get it on your pump head. Just, let's not talk about that one.
I hate radiators.
A little bit of thermal compound in the middle. Then the whole thing should literally just drop down into position. And then obviously we need to just cap the top with these screws. Rather annoyingly though, I do think NZXT have kind of gone and blown it by including these black cables with our otherwise completely white cooler. Really? I mean, to be fair, I don't think it is going to be the worst thing in the world, because we do have this like bit of black motherboard here that can sort of trail alongside. So maybe in a way that's better, but you'd think they would colour match everything, wouldn't you? I mean, actually, all right, that doesn't look too shabby at all. I mean, obviously you've got the benefit of having the LCD on the pump head. This is something that we're not going to have in the final build. If you wanted to do that, you could obviously go for a Corsair HydroX block, because you can get HydroX LCD, put that on the CPU. That would work absolutely fine, but I want it to obviously look a little bit more classic and timeless than that really. But this is a little bit more off the shelf really than what I'm looking for. I do want it to have that little bit more personalization, customizability, and I think that's what the hardline will definitely do. But it is now time to install our graphics card, and surprise, surprise, we're going for an RTX 4090. As I mentioned in the previous video, partly for the gaming performance, because obviously this is the best of the best, but then also that 24 gig of VRAM for productivity is so useful for us. I would generally go out and buy this card for the work that we do, because we use loads and loads of video memory when we're making these videos. For context, we've got 3 of these 6K cameras, so if you want to do multi-feed and then you want to add effects and color and stuff on, then that takes up loads and loads of video memory. So actually, this is quite easy to justify for us, but obviously if you're like a pure gamer, especially if you're on like a 1440p or 1080p screen, very much overkill. But for the time being, we should be able to line this up with our slot, and then this will actually catch our card. I've seen many a GPU sag bracket in my time, but to be fair, they're usually quite ugly. This one actually isn't too bad. Secure that into position. That's not really going to affect the airflow much, and obviously makes it look a whole lot neater. It's a shame that it doesn't match the rest of the colour scheme, but at least now the copper kind of ties in a little bit better. But no, if you were going to do this at home, I'd recommend that if you're not water cooling it, look at a Gigabyte, I was going to say Aorus, I don't think technically it is, a Gigabyte Aero card, as we did a similar build actually in a Y70 Touch with my friend Rob, and we went for an all-white build with that, and the whole thing looked really nice. And that was actually with that Aero card. That was a 4080, but that rig was really cool. Go and check that out at the top right corner of your screen.
Don't put that in the video.
It should now be a case of plugging in our final connection, which of course is our PCI Gen 5. This is our 12 or 16 pin. Make sure that you do plug this in really nice and tight. There shouldn't be any wiggle, and you should hear a slight audible click. Once you've done that, we can of course pull this round to the other side. Use our now very easy to access shift power supply to get this plugged in. Make sure they're all nice and tight, then we can just do a little bit of stuffing. And then last, but certainly not least, we do of course need to plug those fans in to the hub. And you do have a couple of different ways you can do this. You don't actually need to use the hub necessarily at all. You can just plug into your motherboard, fan and RGB headers, and then you won't need any software whatsoever. And this might be what we have to do if we have to get like a third-party controller once we've got the water cooling in. If we really need to do our whole loop based on the temperature of the coolant, which would be better, but we'll wait and see. Because I'm hoping that instead we can use the one single hub that will make my life way easier. If you've used any of the Lian Li fans before, they all look quite similar, but they often have slightly different connections depending on how new it is. And obviously you can actually daisy chain them between the different blocks as well. So if we wanted to plug these 3 fans into this one, they actually do give you an extension cable, so you wouldn't have to go into this block, which is going to be really useful actually if you could do like push-pull or something. You can have loads of different fans all plugged into one connection, which is pretty cool. And in order to do this, I want to grab our little side piece and put that back on now. And I want our hub probably to go about here, so it's covered up entirely by this, because that will look quite nice. Gives ourselves a peely peel, whack that into position, and then we can start to actually plug everything in. Look, I really don't think cable management is actually going to be too difficult here really, because we do have such a large stuff hole down the bottom, bearing in mind that our shift is sort of aiming this way. I like this actually. It's a really easy case to work in. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that is, at least initially, my new personal rig complete. I like the look of it. Obviously, it's got room for improvement. The graphics card, as we say, is completely the wrong color, and it's so big and it takes up so much space. It's kind of like, just a bit like, at the moment in this rig. I suppose we need to test it. I'm getting ahead of myself. Does it at least function? Oh, there we go. So we've got the white actually from the case lighting, and I think if I wanted to, I could like do without the Lian Li controller entirely, and I could actually sort of daisy chain the case to the fan lighting, because they both use digital RGB, and then I could just control it all with the case, which would be quite nice, but we'd lose some of those extra effects. But in terms of noise levels and things, I know it's not really doing anything, that's not a fair test, but that's the other thing I'm after, completely silent rig. So we'll be getting you some full tests on this, we'll be playing some games, looking at some frame rates, some temperatures and things. And I also want to show you how to set this up as like a proper full clean system as well. So get subscribed for part 2, or technically part 3 of this, if you want to see how it progresses. And of course, don't forget we are going to be doing our full custom water cooling on this, and it could go wrong and it could break everything. I don't know. You will have to tune in to find out. But please do let me know your thoughts on this system. Regardless of the fact that the graphics card's the wrong color, what else do you think? Do you think I've gone for the right approach with the case, with the fans, with the RAM? I don't know. Let me know down in the comment section below. And as I say, still let me know on blocks and things, because I haven't got those ordered yet. I am still thinking alpha cool, but if you have any suggestions, please do let us know down in the comment section below. But thank you so much for watching this video. Smash the like button if you've enjoyed this, get yourself subscribed, and of course, as always, if you do want to check out current pricing on anything that was actually featured in this rig, you can find it listed all down below with our affiliate links. And while you're down there, why not bathe in the cleanliness of MSI's Project Zero? These new motherboards are perfect for those wanting the cleanest PC build, as thanks to the connections on the reverse of the motherboard, you can eliminate the vast majority of visible cables in your case. All boards support super fast DDR5 memory, and there are motherboards with both AMD AM5 and Intel 1700. Tidy up your build today with the link down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. We'll catch you in the next one.